Hello.
Hello. Fancy seeing you here.
Orange juice? Certainly.
Don't tell me you've forsaken your beloved whiskey and whiskies.
No. I just changed their color, that's all. I'm going for the pale pastel shades now. They're more becoming to me. How about you, Mr. Connor? You drink, don't you? Alcohol, I mean.
Oh, a little.
A little? And you a writer? I thought all writers drank to excess and beat their wives. You know, one time I think I secretly wanted to be a writer.
Dexter, would you mind doing something for me?
Anything, what?
Get the heck out of here.
Oh, my dear Red, I couldn't do that. That wouldn't be fair to you. You need me too much.
Would you mind telling me just what it is you're hanging around for? Oh, no. Please don't go, Mr. Connor.
Oh, no. Please don't go, Mr. Connor. As a writer, this ought to be right up your street.
Don't miss a word.
I never saw you looking better, Red. You're getting that fine, tawny look.
Oh, we're going to talk about me, are we? Goody.
It's astonishing what money can do for people. Don't you agree, Mr. Connor? Not too much, you know, just more than enough. Now, take Tracy, for example. There's never a blow that hasn't been softened for her. Never a blow that won't be softened. As a matter of fact, it even changed her shape. She was a dumpy little thing at one time.
Only as it happens, I'm not interested in myself for the moment.
Not interested in yourself? You're fascinated, Red. You're far and away your favorite person in the world.
Dexter, in case you don't know...
Of course, Mr. Connor. She's a girl who's generous to a fault.
To a fault, Mr. Connor.
Except to other people's faults. For instance, she never had any understanding of my deep and gorgeous thirst.
That was your problem.
Granted. But you took on that problem with me when you took me, Red. You were no helpmate there. You were a scold.
It was disgusting. It made you so unattractive.
A weakness, sure. And strength is her religion, Mr. Connor. She finds human imperfection unforgivable. When I gradually discovered that my relationship to her was supposed to be not that of a loving husband and a good companion, but... Oh, never mind.
Say it.
But that of a kind of high priest to a virgin goddess. Then my drinks grew deeper and more frequent, that's all.
I never considered you as that, nor myself.
You did without knowing it. Oh. And the night that you got drunk on champagne and climbed out on the roof and stood there, naked, with your arms out to the moon, wailing like a banshee.
I told you I never had the slightest recollection of doing any such thing.
I know. You drew a blank. You wanted to. Mr. Connor, what would you... Oh.
A nice story for Spy, incidentally.
Yeah, it's too bad we can't supply photographs of you on the roof.
Honestly, the fuss you made over that silly, childish effort...
It was enormously important and most revealing. The moon is also a goddess. Chaste and virginal.
Stop using those foul words. Dexter, what are you trying to make me out as?
Tracy, what do you fancy yourself as?
I don't know that I fancy myself
When
as
I read you're going to marry Kittredge, I couldn't believe it. That's why I'm here. How in the world can you even think of it?
Because he's everything you're not. He's been poor, he's had to work, and he's had to fight for everything. And I love him as I never even began to love you.
Maybe so, but I doubt it. I think it's just a swing for me. But it's too violent a swing. Kittredge is no great tower of strength, you know, Tracy. He's just a tower.
You hardly know him.
Well, to hardly know him is to know him well. And perhaps it offends my vanity to have anyone who was even remotely my wife remarry so obviously beneath her.
But how dare you, any of you in this day and age, use such an idiotic...
I'm talking about the difference in mind and spirit. You could marry Mac, the night watchman. I'd cheer for you. Kittredge is not for you.
You bet he's for me. He's a great man and a good man. Already, he's of national importance.
You sound like Spy magazine talking. But whatever he is, Toots, you'll have to stick. He'll give you no out as I did.
I won't require one.
Good evening, one and all. You're in tune with your public radio station, KCBX, San Luis Obispo, and Santa Barbara counties. And it's time for the show that's all about movies. Across the aisle from me, it is the Katharine Hepburn of the Take-Two trio, I should say. Catherine McDonald.
Oh, hi, Jim. That is overstating it. I
No,
have
it
to
isn't.
say, oh, come on.
Well, Bob is more the Lee Marvin with a little bit of Don Rickles,
That is,
you know?
that is true. But you, of course, are the czar of cinema on the Central Coast.
Oh,
bar
thank
none.
you.
That's Jim Dee.
Well, good to see you, Catherine.
Good to see you.
We had another show planned for tonight, but events occurring yesterday, and everyone is talking about the loss of the American icon, Katharine Hepburn.
I know. I feel like we were supposed to say, I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. I mean,
well, we were
so
talking,
sad.
a few weeks ago, Gregory Peck was the subject of the show, and now, You know, it's the dreaded 1-2 punch, shall we say,
Yeah.
losing two amazing American icons that go beyond the talk of film.
Right.
These were amazing people.
Well, I think that especially these two particular actors are the two that certainly can easily be said that they made the golden era of film what it was in many, many ways.
And as we were talking about the film career, a small part of their lives, and tonight we're talking about Katharine Hepburn, part of her life, an incredible filmography, a life showing strength and just a unique voice, and I wish we had more role models like Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah, and again, like we were discussing before, it's almost like her acting career is just the smallest sliver of who she was, and I think that is so readily apparent to anybody who's read anything about her, read anything by her, or really even just watched her as an actress on the screen.
And I was watching a number of her films today and getting some interesting clips. In fact, we already established that our tribute to Katharine Hepburn is going to last 2 shows. We're going to focus on some of the earlier films in her career, talk about her life a bit. Next week, the films that we're not going to be talking about tonight are absolutely amazing. So a 2-parter, and the ones we're going to be talking about tonight, I think you'll get a big kick out of as far as just the legacy of Katharine Hepburn. And we are, of course, going to open up the phone lines a little later on. We think a lot of people will want to weigh in with their own impressions of some Katharine Hepburn movies, and that'll be a little bit later on in the show. And but we are going to focus on the earlier part of her career to about the early 1950s, opening up tonight's program from the Philadelphia Story. And the person who was silent in that scene was Jimmy Stewart,
Yeah.
who was just sitting there embarrassed because
Yeah.
here was Cary Grant, who was Katharine Hepburn's ex.
Yeah.
And they were just going to the mat, and just amazingly so.
Well, it's so great because even in that clip, you can tell that Katharine Hepburn's performance, her character needs a Cary Grant to balance her out. And Jimmy Stewart is the perfect, befuddled, nice guy in the corner going, I don't know what to do. It's perfect. It's perfectly cast. And what a fun movie. I love the Philadelphia Story. It's such a tremendous film, and again with 3 powerhouses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, absolutely.
And this was the film that apparently she bought the rights to. She went and performed it on Broadway, and then it translated to the film. And at that point in her career, we'll talk about the ups and downs of her early career, which is hard to imagine now, but the early part of Katharine Hepburn's life wasn't all. She came on strong, but then her independence, her strong will, kind of caught up with her, wasn't, and made her not popular.
Sure.
I think of Bette Davis and how she was a strong presence on movie sets. Apparently, it's maybe hard to compare, but
Right.
but both these women, had their very strong wills, and they weren't willing to give in to anybody.
And also mentioning Betty, there's a price to pay to some degree for this this type of character who happens to be a woman.
Yes. So Philadelphia Story opened up our show tonight. Just some of the basics. Katharine Hepburn was born May 12th, 1907 in Hartford, Connecticut. Her parents were right behind her to tell her to not only be intelligent, to speak her mind, but also to be fit. And, that combination in any person where you have someone who is extremely intelligent, very feisty, but also fit as a fiddle, it's a rare combination, and that's what Katharine Hepburn was. Originally, she got into acting. She made it onto Broadway, and I believe she premiered in 1931 in Broadway in a play called Art and Mrs. Bottle. And then she went on to play on Broadway in A Warrior's Husband. Her first film was in 1932, and that was Bill of Divorcement, opposite John Barrymore. So she was just barely in, her early 20s, and she was a hit on Broadway. In fact, during this time and all the ones I mentioned, she really commanded attention and was quite the star early on.
And I think that especially in that particular time frame, that was really when a lot of the Broadway actors were trying to make that leap onto this, this brand new phenomenon of film. And I think that was, that's kind of very much of the time for Katharine Hepburn to make that foray into film.
And I did speak with Bob today, and it was interesting that he noted that she came right in the tail end of the silent era, but was making movies right there when sound was coming in. So, as you mentioned, the film medium really coming into its own with sound, and there was Katharine Hepburn. And actually, it wasn't shortly thereafter. It was her third film called Morning Glory in 1933. She won her first Academy Award. So she... barely on the screen.
The new kid, here she is.
She gets the Oscar. What I found interesting, Catherine, is turning on the television talking about Katharine Hepburn, and they say, well, she won 4 Oscars, and she has the record of most nominations and most wins. But just like Katharine Hepburn is, she did not attend any Oscar celebration.
Maybe that's the perfect introduction to the idea of Katharine Hepburn just really being an independent spirit. I mean, I think that is, again, not to belabor what has been mentioned in all the news reporting of, that her whole persona was being a very independent. But I think that that's a perfect example, because it seems like she did not buy into a lot of the dramatics and the game playing and the schmoozing, so to speak, of Hollywood, even in the early 30s, 40s, etc. So I mean, again, that sort of that sense of independence that turned out to be, for her, just a tremendous path to take.
And more of the reports on Katharine Hepburn when they say that she insisted on wearing sweaters and slacks.
Yeah,
and it's hard to perhaps get it out there of how big that was.
Yeah.
I mean, dare I say, when I was in high school, women wearing pants to school was an issue. And I'm talking about the 60s.
Right.
We go back to the 30s, and she's on the set, and she's wearing slacks and not the dress or whatever. Big to do. And they mention that, but I want to emphasize it in the fact that was a big deal.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, again, it is funny to hear people, she was the first to wear pants. She was wearing pants. But I think what's more interesting is that not only was she wearing the pants, she was wearing the pants. She was figuratively wearing the pants too, which I think stands out so much. Again, in all of her performances, or virtually all, her very memorable performances.
Speaking of which, here is a clip that is very interesting. Some of the clips we have tonight, I found it is Katharine Hepburn playing a role, but I think, as you eloquently said prior to going on the air,
I almost feel like Katharine Hepburn is a female version of a method actor. I mean, again, once you start finding out anything about her life, it really seems like so much of her and who she is coming through in her performances. So it is like there's sort of a little bit of a window of who she is when she's playing these very powerful roles. And again, even and we'll get into some of the clips later with Spencer Tracy, but some of the characterizations of that her female characters were these larger than life people that were then cut down to size, so to speak. But I don't think that most people remember the cutting down to size. They remember the larger than life presence that she had. And again, to me, that's almost like a method acting type of technique.
And she was only 5'8".
Yeah.
There you go. Also, when I was looking at these clips today, here's Spencer Tracy, sort of head and shoulders, not too head and shoulders, Spencer Tracy, but in the one of the clips we're going to be listening to in a film from 1935 called Alice Adams, she plays against Fred McMurray, and he just towers above her. So here's a clip from the film I just mentioned, Alice Adams, where Katharine Hepburn plays an average girl in an average small town whose father has become ill, and he's home from work, and he's worried about losing the work and the job. And Katharine, as Alice, wants to break out of this small town and become someone, more than just an average person in town. Here's Alice talking with her dad from the film Alice Adams with Katharine Hepburn.
Now, what were you thinking about, Dad?
Oh, just planning. Planning what to do when I'm able to go back to work again.
Now, what are you talking about? You're going back to your old place at Lamb's, of course.
I heard you crying the other night after the party.
Oh, that was nothing, Daddy, just nerves.
Never mind. I know what was the matter.
Yeah, well, the only matter was I had a silly fit.
Your mother's right, Alice. You ought to have as much as any of these girls you go with. And I've got to do something about it.
Oh, Daddy, you're sweet. I'm the one who ought to do something about it. You know, I've been thinking. Well, what I mean is, I ought to be something besides just a kind of nobody. I ought to...
What, dearie?
Well, there's one thing I'd like to do. I know I could do it, too.
What?
Well, I want to go on the stage. I know I could act. What's the matter?
I was just reminded of your Aunt Florrie and your mother when they were young. They always used to spat about which one would make the best actress. Sometimes I'd have to go out in the hall to laugh.
Yeah, well, maybe you were wrong. If they both felt that way, why doesn't that prove that there is talent in the family? I've always thought there was.
No, dearie. I expect 90% of the women are sure they'd make mighty fine actresses if they ever got the chance. Well, they enjoy thinking about it, and it don't do anybody any harm.
Well, that is true method acting with Katharine Hepburn saying, I think I can act. I can do it.
That aspiration.
And so here's Katharine Hepburn and Alice Adams, and really reflecting herself, wanting to act, and not a stretch in the least. And another aspect of Katharine Hepburn is revealed in this film as well. She's kind of taken to Fred MacMurray, although she's very independent. One thing about all these films, Katharine, that I just love is they're not desperate people. Mm-hmm. When I was noting Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy on screen, yeah, you want them to get together. Yeah, you want them to work together. But if they didn't, it's kind of okay. You say that, okay, these people are going to be okay whether they get together or not. And very strong characters, and I just thought there's no desperation in these characters, which is really kind of wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It is refreshing, again, because it supports that idea of like an independence and really not conventional. I mean, these always sort of go a little bit against the formula of these, romance type stories where it's like, oh, we can't live without each other, and that's what creates this, the tension and the bond within these movies. But you're right. I mean, that it comes from something different.
And even saying that with the independence, in looking at Adam's Rib and some of the other films, they're very sexy. I mean, there's a undercurrent of sexuality in a lot of these films that somehow is bolstered by that independence.
Right.
You think you're just going to, this person's just going to be reading books for the rest of her life, and this other guy is going to be watching sports or whatever.
Oh, no.
But there is a real sexual tension as well.
The tension is very, very strong. Exactly. That's a great way to sum it up.
Here's another clip from Alice Adams. This is Katharine Hepburn talking with Fred MacMurray, and the words that she mentions are another reflection of the true Katharine Hepburn. Alice is walking with Fred MacMurray down the street and talking about how she kind of doesn't fit into this small town atmosphere. This is from Alice Adams.
I thought you were this sort of girl the first moment I saw you.
What sort of girl? Didn't Mildred tell you the kind of girl I am when she asked you to dance with me?
Oh, she didn't ask me to dance with you. That was my idea.
No, but who did she say I was?
Oh, she just said you were a Miss Adams.
A Miss Adams. I see. Well, it certainly is unfortunate that I am so different from Mildred.
Why unfortunate?
Oh, goodness, why? Because she's perfect. She's perfectly perfect. Oh, yes, we all fairly adore her. She's like some big, noble, cold statue, way up above the rest of us. She hardly ever does anything mean or treacherous. You know, of all the girls I know, I think she plays the fewest really mean tricks.
Well, you say Mildred's perfect, but she does do something.
Oh, men are so funny. Of course, all girls do mean things sometimes. My own career's just one long, brazen smirch of them.
Not really.
Yeah.
What, for example?
Oh, the very worst sort. For instance, most people bore me, particularly the men in this town, and I show it. It's made me a terribly unpopular character. For instance, at the average party, I'd a lot rather find some clever old woman and talk to her than I would dance with 9/10 of these non-entities.
Oh, but you dance as if you really liked it. Why, you dance better than any other girl.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Russell. Well, I ought to dance well. When I think of all my dancing teachers, just endless fancy instructors. Still, I suppose that's what fathers have daughters for, isn't it? To throw away money on them.
Now, that speech from Katharine Hepburn in Alice Adams is Katharine Hepburn. She was not a recluse, but she was a recluse from the Hollywood scene. She didn't mingle. She didn't go to those Oscar ceremonies when she got the Oscars.
Yeah.
She was on her own. Apparently, she hung out with a whole different crowd.
Well, and I think what's so great, too, about that particular clip is that her tone is that of just sort of almost like a fawning, giggly, silly girl, but the things that she's are saying are so completely contradictory to that, to her presence, her diction, what have you, and it's great because I think that actually is very symbolic of her life, is that she was such a presence on the screen and she was such a significant actress despite her ups and downs, but yet she was not buying in completely to the whole system.
Well, dare I say, I think it's kind of charming that she can be kind of giggly and the girl, but also have this
rooted in who she is.
Yes, yeah. That's. Check that one out, Alice Adams. In watching it today from 1935. It's a great film starring Katharine Hepburn. Moving ahead to 1938, here we have Holiday. Katharine Hepburn starring with Cary Grant in a completely different Cary Grant role from the Philadelphia Story, which was in 1940. In Holiday, Cary Grant is marrying Katharine Hepburn's sister. And the interest that Katharine Hepburn takes in Cary Grant is very interesting because I think she kind of likes him, but she also wants to make sure and wants to check out who's marrying his sister. A very
protective kind of.
Protective, yeah. And just wanting to know, what makes this guy tick. And what's interesting about the two Cary Grant roles from Philadelphia Story to Holiday is, well, in Philadelphia Story, we know he's
the sparring.
I mean, the scene, probably the most often used scene from Philadelphia Story, in which I'm sure our listeners have seen, is where Cary Grant goes up to her at the door and puts his hand on her face and just throws her down. And that's from Philadelphia Story. You've seen it a million times. In Holiday, Cary Grant plays a very different kind of he's in love with life, and it gives a very interesting speech in this clip that we're going to be playing from this. But what is interesting about this is Katharine Hepburn is fascinated by him because he's not the typical kind of guy. He's very different. He has a different view on life. He has a different view on why he's working, and when he's not going to be working, what he's going to do with his life. Here is a clip from Holiday. It's Cary Grant, once again, who's going to be marrying Katharine Hepburn's sister, and they're discussing who he is and what the dynamic is going to be.
Hey, does she paint? She never told me.
No, you don't.
Why, isn't she any good?
Tisn't hers, it's mine. There lies Linda the artist. Don't disturb the ashes. Frankly, I stank.
What'd you try to do after you discovered you couldn't paint?
Case, are you drawing me out?
Sure, come on.
You really want to know?
Sure.
Well, I tried to go on the stage.
Oh.
Would you care to see me do the sleepwalking scene from Macbeth?
No.
Oh, damn it.
Some other time.
Well, the teachers at Miss Porter's school thought it was very promising.
What else?
There were a lot of humorous little episodes. I tried to get Father to let me take a nursing course at a hospital. Oh, yes, and I almost got arrested trying to help some strikers over in Jersey. Well, how was I to know the Father was on the board of directors of the company? You see, Case, the trouble with me is that I never could decide whether I wanted to be Joan of Arc, Florence Nightingale, or John L. Lewis.
What's the matter? You fed up?
To the neck.
You mean with this $1 million museum, all those marble pillars down there?
Case, compared to the life I lead, the last man in a chain gang thoroughly enjoys himself.
Maybe what you need is some time off from what you've been doing, you know, day in, day out.
You mean from what I've not been doing? Days in, please, years out. How does your garden grow, Case? Is life wonderful where you are?
Can be.
But it hasn't been?
Well, I don't call what I've been doing living.
And what do you recommend for yourself, Doctor?
A holiday?
For how long?
As long as I need.
You mean just to play?
No. No, I've been working since I was 10. I want to find out why I'm working. The answer can't be just to pay bills or to pile up more money. Even if you do, the government's going to take most of it.
Yes, but what is the answer?
Well, I don't know. That's what I intend to find out. You know, the world's changing out there. There's a lot of new, exciting ideas running around. Some of them might be right and some might be cockeyed, but they're affecting all our lives. They want to know how I stand, where I fit into the picture, what it's all going to mean to me. I can't find that out sitting behind some desk in an office. So as soon as I get enough money together, I'm going to knock off for a while.
Quit?
Quit. I want to save part of my life for myself. There's a catch to it, though. It's got to be part of the young part. You know, retire young, work old. Come back and work when I know what I'm working for. Does that make sense to you?
That makes a lot of sense. Does, Julia know?
No, I don't want to raise her hopes until I get enough money together.
Oh, she has enough of her own for 2 right now, or 10 for that matter.
Oh, that's out. No, I don't want her dough. I want to earn it myself.
That's foolish. You're all right, though, Case. You haven't been bitten by it yet. You haven't been caught by it.
By what?
The reverence for riches.
It's great to hear Katharine Hepburn acknowledging that in the Cary Grant character in Holiday, and the fact that this guy isn't in it for the money. He's into living life. And what's interesting in that scene is Katharine Hepburn recognizing that and really liking that quality in the Cary Grant character.
Again, that attraction to the unconventional and the not what you'd expect.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
And I also was thinking, Katharine, today that these motion pictures, they may be considered talky, but the talk is so intelligent. And I mean, sometimes they say, oh, this is a too talky film. The talk here is intelligent. I mean, just in that last clip when Cary Grant says, you know, I wonder what I'm working for. It just stops you or stopped me in my tracks.
Sure.
I go, how many people say that? How many people discuss something like that? You know, he says, you know, I'm not working just to pay the bills. I mean, it's poignant, and the fact that these guys are going at it and talking about issues, issues that are just, you know, that was from 1938. We should be talking about these things now. They're universal issues.
Sure, and I think that's what makes them so tapping into that sense of there's a deeper meaning in life, and that I think that, again, movies of this time do such a good job of identifying it, whereas today, you know, again, we were talking earlier about could you have is there anybody who could play against Katharine Hepburn today? I don't know, you know.
When we open up the phone lines in just a little bit, that could be our question.
Yeah, really.
Let's just say Katharine Hepburn was 50 years younger and she had that spirit and she was out there. Who would have the intelligence and bravado to play against Katharine Hepburn? But
even just to say, you know, that again, tapping into that sort of the deeper sense of the meaning and the richness of life, and too talky, forget it. I mean, it's witty and it's smart, and they're, you know, thank goodness that they're talking so much. I mean, when these films are over, you don't want it to stop. I mean,
exactly. I feel I didn't feel that they were talking.
Yeah,
in any
no,
way.
and that's what I'm saying.
I was drawn into almost every conversation of all these clips that we got for tonight's program. And the program is Take Two. It's the movie program, and this is your public radio station, KCBX, San Luis Obispo, and Santa Barbara counties. My name is Jim Dee. Catherine McDonald is here with me, and we're discussing Katharine Hepburn. We're going to get into some Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy after the 7 o'clock hour and our concession break. We'll be back in just a minute.
I wanna go to the movie show, me and my baby. Come on, let's go. On to the movie show. Let's go. I buy the popcorn as soon as we hit the door. My two brothers, Bell and Puns, sitting in the front row. They bought the candy. We don't need nothing more. I love a movie show, I tell you, in black and white. I don't care what it is. I don't care how small the theater is. I don't care who's playing. I don't care how long they got popcorn and candy bars. Butterfly McQueen, she's gone with the wind. I love the film of Anthony Quinn. The creature from the Black Lagoon, Red River.
We're back on Take Two on Public Radio KCBX. We've refilled our popcorns and our drinks, and we're ready to talk more about the icon that we lost yesterday, Katharine Hepburn, who died at the age of 96.
And I have to say, when I first heard, I had such a pang of, oh, that's so sad. But at the same time, she was such a character that was so full of life. And it is like, I have no doubt, not that I'm personal friends with her, but that her life was incredibly full, and that she just, I would bet my shiny silver dollar that she lived her life to the fullest, and that I don't think, she was afraid of dying. She's many times addressed that, as she got older, that she was not afraid of going on. And I think that's a testament to somebody who is confident about the life that they've led and satisfied with all the things that they've experienced. And I think that love of new experiences and new things that have come out in her writings, and also again just interviews and what have you, it shows that somebody who has lived their life to the fullest.
What's interesting to comment about that, Katharine, as well, is the fact that she was an atheist. She did live life to the fullest, and some of the quotes, which we may not get into today, but she was being interviewed, and her response to being afraid of death, her reply was, "Afraid of death? Not at all. Be a great relief. Then I wouldn't have to talk to you." So there you go.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, we want to get into a couple of clips of this amazing dynamic that Katharine Hepburn had with Spencer Tracy. They made 9 movies together. 8 or 9. And if you haven't seen one of the films with the two of them in it, and there's a handful of them, like I just mentioned, the sparks are there, the chemistry is there, the sexiness is there, and the battles are there. Yeah. It's just everything you could want.
I mean, it's the verbal jousting is amazing. It's funny.
I mean, I hate to put the word franchise on it, but the Katharine Hepburn Spencer Tracy movies were one of the best franchises ever.
Yeah.
So, one of my favorites is Adam's Rib. It's from 1949, and Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn are married, and they're both lawyers.
Yes.
And what is amazing about this film, the setup of the film is Judy Holliday takes a couple of shots at her lousy husband and doesn't kill him. Spencer Tracy is given the assignment to just convict her. Should be a slam dunk case, of course, because she confesses to the fact that she did shoot him. And, he's going to take it on, but guess who ends up taking on defending her? Katharine Hepburn. So it's going to be and this married couple, they're very much in love. They really like each other. They respect each other. They give each other massages each night and everything.
But that doesn't mean anything when it gets to the courtroom.
No. Here's a scene from Adam's Rib. In this scene, Spencer Tracy has learned that his wife, Katharine Hepburn, is going to defend the woman that he was going to defend and just convict her with no sweat. And Katharine Hepburn is going to take her on, and she's going to take him on in the courtroom.
All right. Said the same thing 9 times.
Oh, the 10th time, then. Will you please stay out of this Attinger thing, darling? Will you please?
Did you have to sulk all evening and with a growl on your face?
How could a man have a growl on his face? If you think you're going to turn a court of law into a Punch and Judy show,
Darling,
I want to tell you don't...
Please, this means a great deal to me.
Yes, would you?
And it's not a stunt. This poor woman, isn't she entitled to the same justice, that's usually reserved for men, the same unwritten law that got Lenehan off?
Would you?
I know what you're going to say, that he should have been convicted too, but he wasn't. And you're not going to put this poor soul away just because she had the misfortune to be born a female.
Just one word in
edgewise.
Could I please get a word in edgewise?
Well, go ahead.
Not one syllable.
Not one syllable of
You're
what
too
you have
excited.
been blabbering here tonight.
You always
makes-
do that when you get excited.
I am going to cut you into 12 little pieces and feed you to the jury, so get prepared for it.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, wow.
And what is interesting too is Judy Holliday's character is very interesting. She was in Born Yesterday, and she was a wonderful actress and right up there with both Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. It's a great film, and as this film progresses, they're in the courtroom and then they go home. And then you hear the conversation, and then you go to the courtroom, and the movie moves ahead and gets a little more intense, and then then they go home, and it's just a fabulous film. Here's another clip from Adam's Rib. Here is after the two have spent a day in court, and pretty much everything that Spencer Tracy has brought up is objected by Katharine Hepburn, and she was just cutting him off completely in the courtroom. So now here they are at home. This scene opens up with Spencer Tracy with the evening massage of Katharine Hepburn.
Adios, adieu, adieu. Well, Amanda, it all...
What's the matter? Don't you want your rub now? What are you, sore about a little slap?
No,
Well, what then?
you meant that, didn't you? You really meant that.
Why,
Yes,
no,
you did. I can tell. I know your touch. I know a slap from a slug.
Well, okay.
I'm not so sure it is. I'm not so sure I care to expose myself to typical, instinctive, masculine brutality.
Oh, come
And
now.
it felt not only as though you meant it, but as though you felt you had a right to. I can tell.
What have you got back there? Radar equipment?
You're really sore at me, aren't you?
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
There. Proves it.
All right, I am sore. What about it?
Why are you?
You know why?
You mean Kip? Just because he's having a little fun?
No, because you're having a little fun. You're having the wrong kind of fun down in that courtroom. You're shaking the law by the tail, and I don't like it. I'm ashamed of you, Amanda.
Is that so?
Yes, that's so. We've had our little differences, and I've always tried to see your point of view. But this time you've got me stumped, baby.
You haven't tried to see my point of view. You haven't even any respect for my...
There we go. Oh, here we go again. The old juice. Guaranteed heart melter. A few female tears, stronger than any acid. But this time they won't work. You can cry from now until the time the jury comes in, and it won't make you right, and it won't win you that silly case.
Adam! Please!
Nothing
Try
doing.
to understand.
Do you want your rub down? Want a drink? Do you want any? What, honey?
Ow! Let's all be manly.
The tears did work.
Yeah. coiling, ready to pounce.
Well, that is from Adam's Rib, highly recommended, and I recommend all of the Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy films. And boy, with that, it's already 10 after 7, so let us open up the phone lines. We have another clip, but it'd be good to hear from you. The number here at Public Radio, KCBX, 549-8855. Or 1-800-549-8855. We usually get a lot of calls. I think we're going to get a lot tonight. If you can give us your name, where you're calling from, and if you could keep your comments kind of short, since we're probably going to fill up if you have a favorite film or a favorite performance or something with Katharine Hepburn, we'd love to hear from you. So once again, 549-8855, 1-800-549-8855, and we go to the phones. Good evening. You're on Take Two.
I love your program.
Thanks
My
for
name's
calling.
Stephen Booth, San Luis Obispo.
Hi, Stephen.
And Favorite performance? Joe and Little Women.
Yes. Boy, we didn't have a clip of that, and that was one of her earlier films. I want to find out what date that was. That was 1933. It was her third film.
Oh, wow. And like in all her roles, she's just spectacular, but I just discovered this one recently, and I just really took to it.
Yeah, it's a great version of the story.
Yeah, Little Women. Excellent. Well, that's a great offering to all our listeners, sort of a tribute and a celebration.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good evening. You're on Take Two. Hello.
Hi, my name is Steve Ford. I'm in Santa Barbara, and I'm enjoying the show, and I'm impressed with the way you've captured and assembled these clips and vignettes of the conversations between Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. And Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? I didn't catch your whole show, but I've caught the last 20 minutes or 15 minutes or so. I don't know how much you've addressed or if you've addressed that at all, but that certainly was a landmark film with Sidney Poitier, and just such a powerful film. But the question I wanted to ask was about the relationship between Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. They never got married, and I don't know how much you talked about the romance, but I just wondered. Sounds like you're both pretty authoritative on them. How did they handle that? Is there any basis to a belief that they were truly deeply in love over the years and really had a long-term relationship?
Well, yes, actually, that Katharine Hepburn sort of for a very, very long time was very private about that issue. And in fact, thank you for the segue, because one of the things I wanted to mention this evening was Katharine Hepburn's autobiography. It's entitled Me, Stories of My Life, which is an excellent, just a wonderful read. And it's a pleasure to go on sort of a journey of Katharine Hepburn's life. And one of the things she does finally discuss is her relationship with Spencer Tracy. And she and Spencer Tracy had a relationship for about 27 years. And in fact, she was the one who nursed him while he was dying in 1967, I want to say.
Yes.
And he was alcoholic and had all these different issues that were going on, different health issues. And he was married to somebody else, actually, at the time. So there was a little bit of a complication there. But in fact, they did have a very long-standing relationship together. And very touchingly, the close of her autobiography is a letter to Spencer Tracy, in 1991 when she wrote this book, sort of reaching out to him to his memory. And it's so touching and poignant and beautiful. And I would recommend, first of all, anybody would read this book, but also to capture her feelings for Spencer Tracy is really, a theme that runs throughout the book.
So there was a love there.
Yes.
Thank you for answering that. Thanks for your great show.
Oh,
thank you.
Thanks for listening,
I'll
Steve.
clear the line. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Spencer Tracy did die shortly after the filming of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And for Steve's sake, and those of you who may not have tuned in, we are going to devote next week's show also to Katharine Hepburn and get into the later films.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of those great films as well. Good evening. You're on Take Two. Hello.
Hello. Great show. It seems like all the artists that were in the 90s now, they're in their 90s, they're all kind of dying, and it's an interesting bunch of people that have passed away. But I really thought that you talked about somebody that was going to could possibly act with her now. I thought when she was young, and George Clooney was, I think he would be somehow just perfect with her, and I'll go with that.
Well, I think that's George Clooney. I think one of the things I like about George Clooney is that he seems to play really well on with the women that he is in roles with. That he creates a chemistry, or there seems to be a lot of chemistry with a lot of the different female leads that he acts with. And so I bet she would give him a run for his money. That's what I think. That
ability to spar with her on a romantic level and on a regular level is what I find so fascinating. In fact, I think it was in today's paper there were a couple quotes from Katharine Hepburn, and when she first met Spencer Tracy, she said to him, "Boy, you're kind of short," and his response was, "Well, I'm going to cut you down to size,"
Oh.
and bam, there it is.
Yeah.
You know, so. And the number here, 549-8855, 1-800-549-8855. We're talking about the great Katharine Hepburn, who we lost yesterday. But one of the regrets of doing the show is the fact that we have to talk about her loss. But one of the great benefits of the show is this overview of this amazing career, this amazing personality, and we're discussing her tonight. And as I mentioned, next week we'll also open up the phone lines for you and look at the later career. I mean, the things we're not touching on tonight are Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, The African Queen with Humphrey Bogart, and a number of other films. Of course, working with, can you imagine John Wayne and Katharine Hepburn on the set of Rooster Cogburn? That must have been interesting, although a very complimentary quote from John Wayne I believe we have somewhere. We'll get to that as soon as we go to the phones. And good evening. You're on Take Two. Hello.
Hey, guys. It's Marisa.
Hi, Marisa.
How's it going?
Very
Great.
You guys are doing a really wonderful program tonight.
Thank you.
Katharine
Thanks.
Hepburn. She's one of my heroines.
Well, mine too.
Yeah, she was just an incredible woman all around. But I was thinking about the question that you asked about current folks who could have played across her, and I thought of Kenneth Branagh.
Well, yeah, okay. They could do Shakespeare together, that's for sure.
Well, I think that he's a little more versatile than that.
Yeah.
Well, the
But
Shakespeare and then
he
move
just
on.
Is, he has a wonderful humor about him and a certain intelligence, and I think that he would be good. I also think that Harrison Ford might be able to handle it, too.
Dare I say, Marisa, I thought of Harrison Ford, and then I kind of went, I mean, nothing against Harrison Ford, but I kind of went, nah.
Really?
I don't. And it's nothing against Harrison Ford. I just think that Katharine Hepburn would mop the floor with
It would
him.
just be too much for him, huh?
Actually, Kenneth Branagh, though, I think that's a really good choice.
He's got that sharpness to him, and Harrison Ford is just kind of all soft. So, and she thinks he requires that sharpness.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Just one thing, Marisa, too. When I was thinking of both Katharine Hepburn and Gregory Peck today, when you said that Katharine Hepburn is your heroine, I mean, both of these people seem to be heroic. They're icons, and gender doesn't have anything to do with it. It's more like her strength. I admire the incredible strength of Katharine Hepburn. I'm sure any woman can look at Gregory Peck's performance in To Kill a Mockingbird and say that's great parenting. It doesn't. It's not mother or father. It's just great parenting. And both these people had these amazing attributes that just seem to transcend any sort of gender.
Yeah, well, each of them played roles that anyone could look up to. Just strong, whole people.
I agree.
And I think that what's so neat is that I think they were strong, whole people in real life. I mean, it wasn't, both of these actors really had full, presences in life. And I think that really, how can you separate that from what they're able to do, as an actor?
Right, yeah. Well, thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marisa.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling. It's 549-8855 or 1-800-549-8855. The movie program, Take Two. And good evening. You are on Take Two.
Hi, my name is Piper, and I'm in Arroyo Grande. When you mentioned Gregory Peck, I was thinking how from everything that we read about Katharine Hepburn and Gregory Peck, I don't think this whole cult of celebrity mattered very much to either of them. And they had these lives outside of the films they made, and I think that's really compelling to the audience because these were fascinating people. Like the quote I read in the LA Times today was, that you guys probably read too, was, if all you know about me is that I came from two extraordinary parents, that's all I need to say to people. And I thought, how wonderful she doesn't mention her celebrity, her films. And I just think that we don't see that too much anymore, and I don't know if that's the media or what, but we're not really told about the other things that matter to some of these people, and for both of these people, they had full lives outside of their work in film. So it was interesting.
Beautifully said, Piper.
Yeah, that's eloquent. It's funny when we were talking about the aspect that they would look at their acting as just a small part of their whole person.
Absolutely.
I thought of Marlon Brando and the fact that, he just sort of, and he made a bunch of films where I guess he was reading off of cue cards. And of course, I have the greatest respect for Brando. Yeah. But unlike Gregory Peck and Katharine Hepburn, that fullness and not being self-conscious or putting it out there was, well, you're saying it. You said it a lot better than I said it.
Well, and I think for a woman, I guess as a woman, you don't see that in a lot of our. People talk about Julia Roberts or Jodie Foster, or these people that, everybody has their own production company now, but the fact that she bought the Philadelphia Story, I guess, or maybe Howard Hughes helped her, I don't know, from what I read today. But the fact is, I guess she was what they were calling box office poison, right? And then she bought this play that she had been in and chose wonderful people to be in it, including, of course, Cary Grant, and then just made this magical film that, I think she was just really smart and before her time as far as even a business person. And I, as an enjoyer of film, it almost bothers me that people talk so much about Spencer Tracy, because I read Me as well, and I really did enjoy sort of that little picture you get into that complicated relationship. But do you think it's just the fact they made 9 films that the Hepburn Tracy thing just is almost synonymous the way we talk about them?
I don't know. I think that one of the things even just Jim and I were saying earlier is that they had such a dynamic relationship in their roles together on the screen, but also it can't be ignored that they had this relationship outside as well. And I think that it's kind of one of those things that's under consideration. And I think that you're right, especially the idea that even though I think that Katharine Hepburn in so many ways was outside of her gender, she wasn't too, because she was such a strong woman. And that was such a unheard of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of it feels like gray area to me.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for I was thrilled coming home to hear you guys were going to do this tonight. So I look forward to next week too.
Really appreciate your call.
Thank you, Piper.
Bye.
Bye. Boy, that was a great call.
Good job, Piper.
Good evening. You're on Take Two. Hello.
Hi. My name's Bill from San Luis Obispo.
Hi, Bill.
Hi. And I'd like to say terrible loss, and I appreciate you guys really handling this so effectively. It's real nice.
Thanks.
Thank you.
But with your comment about who might be able to play aside Katharine Hepburn these days, someone I thought of would be, and think about it first, but Russell Crowe.
Ooh.
Because he really does carry some real intelligence in some of his parts, and how he can really do a character. Particularly when he did that Jeffrey Wigand from Insider.
Right.
When if he doesn't really have to concentrate on doing his accent. We think that he sounds like an American, but he's impersonating an accent.
Yeah.
People who do Americans who try to do convincingly an Australian just don't come across quite as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he can really do dialogue and banter. Where she, with Katharine Hepburn, was so great at, that he could come back with intelligence. And what I was thinking is that, an actor that doesn't just read the script but has an understanding of the words and the meaning of the feelings those words really are meant to portray.
Yes, Spencer Tracy.
A real talent.
Spencer Tracy was quoted as saying something like, "You don't act, you behave." And but Russell Crowe, a very interesting choice, and I think it's interesting also looking at a lot of the films that he made prior to becoming a star in America, because he was in a lot of Australian films prior to making it big in this country, and I think he does have that intelligence, sensitivity, and that strength.
And a wide range.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
choice.
Bill. That's good one.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for calling, Bill.
You bet.
I think we have time for one more call. Good evening. You're on Take Two. Hello.
Oh, hello. Hey, I was just curious. There was one movie that Spencer Tracy or Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy made, and Spencer Tracy was trying to explain to her baseball. Do you remember that one?
That is a Woman of the Year. where they're at the baseball game and she doesn't know anything about it because she's a political commentator, but Spencer Tracy is a sports writer, and of course he knows everything about baseball.
So what's Woman of the Year?
Woman of the Year, it's 1942.
Yeah, that was, I mean, in a sense, it was kind of, well, maybe not sexist, but you could just see Spencer Tracy just kind of getting flummoxed. trying to explain baseball to her. Anyway, great show.
Oh, well, thanks for the call, and that's
you.
a great film. It's Woman of the Year.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Well, Catherine,
yes.
Maybe we should just play one more. In fact, it's great our caller mentioned Woman of the Year. We have a clip from Woman of the Year, and I don't need too much introduction of this scene. Here's Katharine Hepburn approaching Spencer Tracy, and, well, just listen. This is from Woman of the Year.
All right, let's have it.
Well, as a matter of fact, there is something I'd like to talk to you about.
I figured that. What is it?
Darling.
What?
Are you perfectly satisfied about us?
What do you call being satisfied?
I mean, do you think that maybe there's a reason for the friction we've been having lately?
Could be.
Do you think perhaps it's because there are only two of us?
What?
What would you think about having a child?
Tess! Tess, is that what this build-up has been? Did you think I'd have to be sold on the idea?
Well, I wasn't quite sure. I thought perhaps I'd better get you into the right frame of mind.
Get me into the right frame of me? The sooner the better.
It's already been done.
It's already been done. Well, you gotta lie down.
I'm all right, Sam.
Yes, but you gotta be careful. I'll let Ma come east with it. You gotta. She'll walk from Wisconsin for a thing like this. What did the doctor say?
Well, I haven't seen the doctor, Sam.
Well, you've got to see the doctor. You gotta stay off your feet, and Tess, I hope it's a boy. Oh, you sweet.
It is a boy.
Is it a boy? What? Well, who?
He's a refugee. A little Greek refugee. He's ours. You see, 2 weeks ago they made me chairman of the Greek Refugee Committee, and I accepted without thinking much about it. And then while you were away, they had a meeting, and some idiot suggested that I should take the first one, so I did.
Does stand me up,
Oh, Chris, he με βεβαίωτη σ' αγαπάει. He thinks you don't like him.
What's his name?
Chris. And Sam, he's been to 2 baseball games while he's been in New York, and he simply loves it, so you'll have lots to talk about when he learns to speak a little English.
Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy, and talks about having a child. She's already done it. She's adopted the child.
And even the baseball reference worked in there.
There we go. Thanks to all our callers tonight and our listeners. And thanks for listening to the movie program, Take Two. Thank you for being here, Catherine McDonald.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me for this celebration of Katharine Hepburn.
And we will continue with our look at Katharine Hepburn next week in part 2 of Take Two. A big thank you to Hank for being our projectionist tonight. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week.